Hey, welcome to the Explainer. So, we're all facing these huge, complex challenges, right? Things like climate change, growing inequality, you name it. But what if the very economic rulebook we've been using is actually what's holding us back? Today, we're going to dive into a new playbook, one that completely redefines wealth and focuses on what's real, not just the numbers on a balance sheet.
Okay, let's start with the absolute core of the problem. Just look at this. On one side, you have a Nobel Prize-winning economist saying, hey, a 3-degree temperature rise, it'll barely touch GDP. But on the other side, the world's top climate scientists are shouting from the rooftops that just half that increase will be devastating. This isn't just a simple disagreement, you know. This is a massive, dangerous disconnect between our economic models and cold, hard, physical reality.
So how did we even get here? I mean, how did we end up with an economic framework that seems to be operating in a totally different universe from what the science is telling us? Let's dig into that gap.
And this, right here, really gets to the heart of it. Our standard economic thinking it struggles to value anything that doesn't come with a price tag. Think about it, clean air, a stable climate, healthy oceans. The Earth doesn't send us an invoice for those things. So when our policymakers are only looking at financial spreadsheets, they're flying blind. They're missing a huge piece of the picture, and that leads to decisions that could be absolutely catastrophic down the line.
All right, so if the problem is that we're measuring all the wrong things, then the first step is pretty obvious, right? We need to build a better ruler. And this brings us to the first key idea for our new playbook, a framework for measuring what truly matters. It's called real capital.
So what is real capital exactly? Well, think of it as the durable foundation of our well-being. It's all the assets that we use to produce goods and services, but that don't get used up in the process. It's not just money. It's the actual stuff that supports our society. It's the real wealth of a nation.
And this real wealth, it breaks down into 4 essential pillars. First, you've got natural capital. That's our planet's life support system. Then there's built capital, which is all the physical stuff we built like roads, bridges, and factories. You've also got social capital, which is our institutions, our shared knowledge, our level of trust. And finally, human capital. That's the health, skills, and creativity of all our people. The thing is, all 4 of these are totally interconnected and absolutely vital for a healthy society.
Now this is where it gets really interesting. This framework doesn't just list these things. It actually measures their health using a concept called maturity. 100% means that capital is healthy, sufficient, and sustainable. So take a look at this chart. You might have a country with amazing built capital, say at 80%, but at the same time, its ecosystems are just completely depleted, way down to 30%. This gives policymakers a super clear visual guide to where we actually need to invest and regenerate.
Let's look at a real-world example to see how this works. The Swedish forests. You can think of this like a balance sheet for nature. The forest's total potential to provide services, that's its asset, which we set at 100%. But then degradation from things like logging creates a 66% liability. So what's the bottom line? The final column, the equity, shows the forest's actual ability to function is only 34%. We've basically used up 2/3 of its capacity. And that's not a financial number. That's a direct measure of its ecological health.
So you might be asking, well, who decides what 100% is? And the logic here is actually really powerful and simple. It connects our democratic values directly to policy. It just follows this simple formula. If we, as a society, agree that we value something, like clean water, for example, then the real capital that provides it, our rivers and aquifers, should be at a specific, scientifically measurable level. It turns our shared goals into real, actionable targets.
Okay, so now we have a tool to measure what's really important. But I know what you're thinking. That immediately brings up the huge question, this all sounds great, but how could we possibly afford to restore our ecosystems or build all this new infrastructure? And that brings us to the second key idea, one that challenges the very idea of affordability itself. This is where modern monetary theory, or MMT, comes in. And the core idea is actually pretty simple, but it changes everything. A government that issues its own currency, like the US with the dollar or Japan with the yen, can never, ever run out of it. It can't go bankrupt in the very money it creates. And once you grasp that one fact, it totally changes how you think about government spending.
Now this slide busts one of the biggest myths out there. We're always told a government's budget is just like a household budget. It is not. You and I, we have to earn or borrow money before we can spend it.
A currency-issuing government is the complete opposite. It literally creates money when it spends. It spends first. It can never run out.
So, if the government can't run out of money, does that mean they can just spend infinitely? No, of course not. But the limit isn't what we think it is. The real constraint is inflation. And inflation happens when our spending outpaces our economy's real capacity to produce stuff, when we run out of available workers, raw materials, or factories to meet demand. The limit isn't financial, it's physical. It's about real resources.
And the economist Stephanie Kelton just sums this up perfectly. The question we should be asking isn't, can we afford it? The real question is, do we have the people, the materials, and the technology available to actually do it? This completely reframes our entire understanding of what is possible.
All right, now for the really cool part. This is where the magic happens. We've got these two incredibly powerful ideas. One, a way to measure our real resources, and two, a new understanding of money that says those resources are our only true limit. So let's see what happens when we put them together.
MMT tells us that the real brake on government spending is the availability of our resources. That's great, but it brings up a pretty critical question, doesn't it? How do we actually know what those limits are? How much labor do we have? How healthy are our forests? How much capacity do our factories have?
So MMT gives us the economic logic. It tells us where we need to look for the real constraints. It gets us to stop obsessing over financial deficits and start focusing on the real world.
And here's the aha moment. The Real Capital Framework is the exact tool we need to answer MMT's central question. It provides the data. It measures the health and the capacity of our natural, human, social, and built capital. It tells us exactly where we have slack in the system and where we have real-world bottlenecks.
The whole point is this. Together, these two frameworks create a brand new dashboard for running an economy. Think about it. For decades, we've been trying to steer our society by staring at just one, often misleading, gauge, the budget deficit. This gives us a full dashboard that tracks the health of our real world. Are our forests thriving? Are our people educated and healthy? Do we have the infrastructure we need for the future?
So what does this new playbook actually unlock for us? What becomes possible when we shift our focus from financial accounting to real-world abundance?
Well, suddenly we get to ask completely different and frankly much more important questions. Instead of getting stuck arguing about debt ceilings, the entire debate shifts to real things. How do we use our resources more efficiently? How can we make sure we prioritize those resources for essential services? How do we hold companies accountable for regenerating the capital they use up? And maybe most importantly, what investments do we need to make to get all of our capitals to 100% and build a truly healthy and resilient society?
And all of this leaves us with a final and pretty profound question. This new economic playbook is telling us that our true constraints aren't numbers in a spreadsheet. Our real limits are the physical limits of our planet and the creative limits of our own imagination. So knowing that, the only question left to ask is, what kind of world should we choose to build?